The U.S. government is offering a reward of up to $5 million for information leading to his arrest and conviction.
Chapo Isidro shifts position and vanishes after a U.S.-Mexico task force executes El Mencho in an ambush, triggering panic across cartel ranks. The operation in Tapalpa wasn't random. Mexican special forces moved in on his position before dawn. El Mencho was found wounded after intense clashes and later died while being transported out.
It was truly a brutal and violent attack, systematically carried out by both organized crime personnel and the elite special forces military personnel.
But what makes this different isn't just that a kingpin fell, it's how he fell. U.S. officials confirmed that intelligence support was provided through a newly launched military-led counter-cartel task force, one designed specifically to map entire criminal networks on both sides of the border. A detailed target package was reportedly compiled. That means this was built from the ground up. And while one of the most powerful cartel leaders in Mexico is now gone, the FBI's 10 most wanted list still includes another name tied to major trafficking routes. Fausto Isidro Meza Flores, known as El Chapo Isidro. There's a $5 million reward for information leading to his capture. Analysts say he has quietly expanded influence in northern Sinaloa, while other factions weakened. And when a task force proves it can locate and eliminate a Tier 1 target, every leader still standing recalculates. Security tightens, movements become quieter, and alliances are reassessed. Because when one kingpin is removed through a mapped operation, the next one is already being mapped. Before the ambush in Tapalpa, El Mencho was more than a mere trafficker. He was a system. The CJNG did not rise by accident. It began years earlier, first branding itself as a vigilante force known as the Mata Zetas, claiming to clean up rival groups. But that image didn't last. Under Mencho, the organization transformed into one of the most aggressive and militarized cartels in Mexico, with military-grade weapons, improvised explosives, armored convoys, and a strategy built on spectacle.
Yeah, they have drones and a lot of very sophisticated military equipment. This cartel that is Jalisco New Generation.
What made CJNG different wasn't just the money, it was the posture, paramilitary firepower.
Analysts say the violence was deliberate, public, and performative. Bodies displayed for all to see, messages printed on banners, roadblocks set on fire. The point was not just to kill rivals, but to send a signal. If you oppose us, this is what will happen to you. Chris Dalby, a senior security analyst, once compared the model to conquest warfare: wipe out resistance quickly and make the fear do the rest. And at the center of that system was Mencho himself. After taking control in 2012, he consolidated power with financial backing from Los Quines, expanding trafficking routes across Mexico and into Europe and Asia. When the Sinaloa cartel fractured after El Chapo's extradition, CJNG moved fast, filling gaps, forming tactical alliances, and expanding into more than 20 states. But the real weapon of control was intimidation.
Intimidation campaigns and open defiance of the state.
He was known to personally pressure officials. Leaked recordings showed him calling police commanders directly, ordering them to stand down, telling them to relax, reminding them he knew exactly who and where they were.
Delta 1.
Hey, ¿quién habla?
Mira bien, hijo de tu puta madre. Soy Mencho, güey. Relaja tu puta gente a la verga. Soy Mencho, güey. Relaja tus putas partidas, si no te voy a partir tu madre, tienes toda tu bola de perros. Te tengo identificado 30 güeyes.
That wasn't bluster. CJNG, under Mencho, relied on mobility, aggression, and strategic alliances rather than deep-rooted political control. Influence was enforced through fear and constant confrontation. But he more than deployed gunmen. He also manipulated perception. The cartel pushed social media threats, uploaded execution videos, printed branded narco messages. Even influencers who mocked him were reportedly targeted and killed after publicly insulting him. That was centralized psychological warfare, what most people know about how El Mencho was taken down in the raid into Tapalpa. But that's not exactly how it began. It really began with mapping. For years, El Mencho survived by staying mobile. He avoided predictable patterns. Instead, he relied on layered security, loyal gunmen, and heavily wooded terrain in the Sierra Madre Mountains. Tapalpa, a small mountain town surrounded by dense forest, became one of those temporary safe zones. But this time, the location was known.
That same day, an operational force was organized, made up of 3 components: a ground unit, which consisted of personnel from the Joint Special Force, Army Special Forces, and the Immediate Reaction Special Force of the National Guard.
Mexican Special Forces moved before dawn, forming a cordon around a wooded area dotted with cabins on the outskirts of town. Air support circled above. Ground units advanced carefully.
As I mentioned, there was also an airmobile force made up of 6 helicopters and Special Forces personnel.
When they closed in, cartel gunmen opened fire.
Then it moves. At this point, the security personnel working for Mencho opened fire directly on the military personnel, who were stationed at the scene. After the confrontation, Mencho leaves the scene, leaving behind a group equipped with a large amount of high-caliber weaponry.
The exchange was intense. A military helicopter was struck and forced into an emergency landing after taking fire from below. Inside the camp, authorities later recovered high-caliber weapons and rocket launchers, the kind capable of downing aircraft. But thankfully, those launchers were never successfully deployed.
Despite the intensity of the assault, they successfully repelled the action.
And the forces pressed forward. El Mencho was located hiding in the undergrowth with members of his inner circle.
They immediately begin to open fire on the Special Forces operatives. They were carrying rocket launchers as well.
He was wounded during the confrontation. 2 bodyguards were also injured. They were both placed into custody and flown toward Mexico City for emergency treatment, but he didn't quite make it.
Support from a helicopter is requested so it can land and transport them to a medical facility in Jalisco. Mencho, his 2 bodyguards, and the wounded officer are transported. Unfortunately, he died on the way.
Mexico's most powerful drug cartel bosses has been killed in a military operation. His name is Nemesio Oseguera, commonly known as El Mencho. He was targeted by Mexico's military in an operation in the state of Jalisco. Multiple vehicles and shops across the state have been set on fire in response to the killing of the drug lord. Now, members of organised crime have also been clashing with authorities. There's waves of violence that have spread over 5 other states, and this is just the beginning.
Mexican defense officials later confirmed the operation was designed and executed by Mexican forces, but they also acknowledged they didn't do it alone.
With Central Military Intelligence and additional information from the institutions of the Security Cabinet, as well as from United States institutions, the Secretariat of National Defense tracked El Mencho's network of connections.
Many people were confused by what that really meant, until U.S. officials broke down their new powerful tool against the cartels, something they've been cooking up for a while. U.S. officials confirmed a newly launched military-led counter-cartel task force helped build a detailed target package on Mencho. That package reportedly combined intelligence from U.S. law enforcement, surveillance assets, and interagency analysis. Patterns, movements, network mapping, inner circle connections. So the raid was not a lucky break. It happened because it was built, piece by piece, and once the target package was complete, Mexican forces acted. The shield that protected him for years, mobility, terrain, intimidation, failed against mapped intelligence. That's what changes the equation, because for the first time in 6 decades of war on drugs, the US finally has the upper hand. And it looks like they already have another target lined up. The task force that took down Mencho might be new, but it's already proven itself effective, and according to analysts, they can only get better after utilizing what they learned in the takedown of El Mencho.
Claudia Sheinbaum's government sold the killing of El Mencho, the country's most powerful drug lord, as a triumph, but it cost them. These National Guardsmen are waiting for the bodies of their fallen comrades to come out of Guadalajara's forensic department. 25 of them died on Sunday in firefights with the Jalisco New Generation cartel. That's the cartel that belonged to El Mencho. It's the most members of the National Guard to ever die in a single day.
But how do they really function? Here's the breakdown. Last month, the United States formally launched the Joint Interagency Task Force Counter-Cartel, known as JITF-CC. This is not a single agency. It is a military-led fusion group that pulls in intelligence from multiple departments at once: defense, law enforcement, border operations, surveillance units. Its mission is not just to chase traffickers, but to map the ecosystems that allow those traffickers to thrive. Brigadier General Maurizio Calabresi, who leads the task force, explained why they needed the task force, and it has something to do with the US's experience with terrorism. The brigadier explained that cartels operate a bit differently from terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda or ISIS. Despite the destruction they both cause, cartels are profit-driven, decentralized, and constantly shifting. That makes mapping harder and more necessary. General Calabresi said they have to identify entire networks so we can disrupt and dismantle them.
And so one of the terms that I use a lot is we have to disrupt and dismantle.
Not just one boss or group, the whole structure. Estimates cited by US officials suggest there may be only a few hundred true decision makers at the top of these organizations. But below them, that's where the real danger resides. Reportedly, there are anywhere from 200,000 to 250,000 contractors and facilitators who help move products, launder money, transport chemicals, and protect routes. Like the general said, an ecosystem, and once the cartels were designated as foreign terrorist organizations, new assistance tools became available to the task force. Expanded intelligence sharing, broader military support, increased intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities. What officials call ISR. That means more real-time tracking, more cross-border data fusion, and more visibility into communications patterns. And we already have Exhibit A. El Mencho was not simply hunted. His environment was studied, his contacts were traced, his protection layers were examined, the board itself was analyzed. So, who's next on the list? With El Mencho removed, attention simply shifts.
The Mexican army has killed powerful cartel boss El Mencho. He was one of the most wanted men in both Mexico and the United States. The US Embassy there said it provided intelligence to Mexican special forces for the operation. El Mencho's killing set off a wave of violence, with cartel members torching cars and gunmen blocking highways in more than half a dozen states in Mexico. US and Canadian airlines have cancelled dozens of flights to Mexico in response. The development comes as the Trump administration has pushed Mexico to intensify efforts against drug gangs trafficking fentanyl to the United States.
And one of the names already inside that spotlight is Fausto Isidro Meza Flores, known as El Chapo Isidro.
Meza Flores was originally indicted on May 2, 2012 in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. On November 26, 2019, a federal grand jury returned a superseding indictment.
Beyond the indictment, the State Department is offered up to $5 million for information leading to his arrest. And that's not all.
On February 4, 2025, FBI Acting Director Brian Driscoll announced the addition of Fausto Isidro Meza Flores to the Bureau's 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list.
When you find out what he's done, the US gunning for him makes sense, because inside Mexico, his influence has been expanding, particularly in the Guasave region of northern Sinaloa. Security sources have described him as one of the main beneficiaries of the recent Sinaloa cartel war.
His control over the Guasave region made him a ghostly power broker, feared by rivals and respected by allies.
Los Chapitos, the sons of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, have been weakened by arrests, internal losses, and sustained pressure. At the same time, CJNG is now dealing with internal stabilization after losing its top leader.
But as others fell, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman captured, El Mayo Zambada cornered, the Beltran Levis dismantled. Fausto Isidro Meza Flores remained phantom.
That leaves space, and analysts say Isidro has used that space carefully. Last year, he formed an alliance with Ismael Mayito Flaco Zambada, combining operational muscle with established logistics networks in the Golden Triangle. In simple terms, he expanded, but he did it quietly.
He wasn't loud like some of his counterparts. He didn't flash gold chains or appear in narco ballads. He operated from the shadows, crafting a network that spread from Mexico's Pacific coast to the United States, trafficking cocaine, methamphetamine.
But growth carries risk, especially with a new task force on the horizon. Reports from regional observers suggest he knows he's next and has made moves to stay off the US's radar, tightened personal security in his organization, reduced public visibility, movement patterns adjusted, outside contacts narrowed.
Over the years, there have been whispers of deep corruption, both in Mexico and beyond. Law enforcement sources suggest that operations to capture him were thwarted from within, that someone tipped him off. Agents recall getting within striking distance, only for El Chapo Isidro to vanish mere hours after his arrival. His information network, they say, runs as deep as his drug routes. One former investigator described it like this: "You think you're hunting him, but he's already read your playbook."
Because when arrival at the top falls through coordinated pressure, anyone rising near that level reassesses exposure. Especially when they are already on an international most wanted list. The board has changed, and rising to the top now also makes you easier to find. El Mencho's death did not calm Mexico, it shook it.
With many Americans still stuck in Mexico, the advice from security experts for those planning to travel, including tens of thousands of college kids planning spring break there in Mexico, the advice very simple: don't do it.
Within hours of the operation, CJNG cells launched retaliatory attacks across multiple states. Highways were blocked, vehicles were burned, armed groups moved in coordinated waves designed to show presence, not just anger.
Reportedly, hundreds of blockades across more than 20 Mexican states, all because of one operation turned deadly.
At the same time, other conflicts were already active. In Sinaloa, rival factions continue battling for control after more than a year of internal fighting. In western states, smaller groups are testing territory lines, probing to see where power has weakened.
Now each one of these cartels, with El Mencho being taken out, all these leaders of these smaller cartels are all going to try and vie for that top dog spot.
This is not one war. It is several wars unfolding at once. But Mexico has seen this pattern before. During the Calderon era, high-profile kingpin removals were followed by fragmentation. Leaders fell, but organizations splintered rather than collapsed. Smaller groups fought to fill gaps. Violence often surged before stabilizing. Security analysts warn that decapitation without dismantling infrastructure can produce short-term instability. Removing a CEO does not dissolve the corporation as long as the supply chains, financiers, transporters, and most importantly, the foot soldiers are allowed to continue to exist.
And so one of the terms that I use a lot is we have to disrupt and dismantle. Well, this is what we have to do. It doesn't end there because the cartels have evolved tremendously.
And in the absence of a single dominant voice, competition intensifies. Experts say this redesign phase could last months, possibly years. El Mencho is gone. The network has been studied. Isidro is inside the spotlight. Cartel factions are adjusting posture, but the country remains in a fragile transition. Because when a kingpin falls, the war is only just beginning. Please feel free to share your thoughts with us